The date was April 6th, 2017. The Facebook page, MMPR, has come forth with an update regarding the film. The last update being almost 1 full year ago, on May 11th, 2016. MMPR has finally come forward and issued an update. Finally. After asking and asking, we finally get the update Oh. Well, shit. Hello everyone, I am Xde Rex, and this is an update video on the MMPR Fan Film situation. More information has come to light as of recently, both public and private, and I'm here to showcase it and put it together for the justifiably skeptical backers and the not as justifiably upset fans, which is something I want to touch on as well. Again, like the previous video I made, which will be linked in the description below, this video is not meant to incite a witch hunt or push a warped agenda. If you came to this video with a closed mind, only willing to accept an answer along the lines of, Dominic Savili, the creator, scammed us, this video is not for you, because nothing is likely to change your mind anyway. If you want the facts, this video will present them. This video will be separated into 4 sections. Recapping the last video, the new information with interviews from Don Money, editor and Red Ranger, and the director himself, Dominic Savili. Checking the validity of said information and cross-referencing it with info from the last video, and debunking allegations in my personal opinion. With that being said, let's get right into it. In the last video, we covered the back and forth between Threshold and MMPR, and how Threshold claimed that they had been done with the VFX months prior. The conclusion was that not enough info was available to draw a strong conclusion on who was lying and who wasn't. We then talked with an anonymous actor who worked on the film, and Ricky Barksdale. From what they both said, we concluded that there is a final product. The film was shot. The anonymous actor could not comment, but Ricky commented on the ordeal between MMPR and Threshold by saying, I, like many others, are unaware of what talks happened between them. We followed by covering the misplaced hate of the fans and backers, and why the MMPR actors and production team and the Slapface team shouldn't be held accountable, and that the only thing we should really be asking for, in addition to the movie, is an update from Dom. Lastly, we covered the reality of Kickstarter campaigns, and the potential legal ramifications of this whole ordeal. Though I really don't want to, it seems I'm going to have to repeat myself and quote the previous video from time to time, because things I have already covered as false allegations are still being represented as facts by angry backers and fans. That aside, let's cover the new information. Here is the new update on the MMPR fan page if you haven't read it. To summarize, the post said this: the VFX are still not done, and they are no longer working with Threshold. Right now, the MMPR team is looking for a new VFX company, but the film itself is about 70% done. So obviously a lot of people are rather skeptical, which isn't unjustified. It's been a long while since the last update, and a lot of people think that this isn't much of an update to begin with, because they basically said the same thing they did last year. While that isn't an unwarranted claim, we did get new info. They are getting a new VFX team to complete the film, and the film is close to completion, albeit, yes, very late. If we check the comments and replies, we can gather some more info. MMPR replied to a post saying the actors and actresses were quiet about this because they knew just as much as we did. Which sounds about right, since Ricky Barksdale said roughly the same thing, both about the film and about the ordeal between Threshold and Dom. If we dig further, actually, we find Don Money, editor and Red Ranger, commenting on the update as well. His entire post is right here, pause if you want to read it. To summarize, he confirms that the film was 100% shot and the money was 100% used on the film. It went nowhere else. To address any "you're just covering for Dom" claims, he stated that he hasn't spoken to Dom in a while and he's been busy on other projects, which is true if you check his IMDb page. Filming for the film ended likely long before 2016, since that's when the VFX team Threshold claimed to be done with it, during January of 2016. So he has had a few projects since then. He has also stated that many of the actors are just as disappointed about how this has all turned out, and that the production was not being handled as well as it should have been, which I believe they have admitted and accepted. Now, this is all info just on the update post, but I personally felt like the info given wasn't sufficient, meaning I needed more. I reached out to Don and the man himself, Dominic. Both responded to me, and both are allowing the messages we sent to be shared with you guys. Actual messages will be on the screen as well, so let's start with Dominic. I messaged Dom basically telling him that he's earned back some credibility to me for updating everyone. I tell him though that in all honesty I am a little skeptical of the update as well. I state that if Threshold never finished the VFX, then why does their demo reel showcase that film, albeit different sections from the film? My reasoning behind this is that the film is roughly 15 minutes long, and the demo is about 3 minutes long and showcases different sections of the film. And that's a reasonable representation, to me at least, that the film is done for the most part. Here are his messages on the screen, and here is his response. Because what they have in their reel is something I was never in the room to make changes to. They used the reel to get more work, which is fine by me, but I was never able to make changes to the scene that they had almost finished. The movie is 70% done, but still it's 70%. I responded with, "So they did the VFX for select scenes to showcase their work?" Dominic responded as follows, "Yeah. When we asked for changes, they wanted a new contract, which we signed off on, and then they never honored the contract. Their work got them more work, which put MMPR on hold for a full finish." My response, "And that's what started this whole slippery slope. Interesting. You saying that you're not being in the room while the VFX was happening does correlate with what Ricky said too," referencing Ricky Barksdale saying he's in the dark about the film and has no idea about the talks between Dom and Threshold, and that's why everyone's in the dark. His response, "I was in the room in the beginning. Then last year around this time is when everyone kinda went dark. We told the actors not to get involved. It's not their place and we really wanted to work things out with them. Your video summed it up. The reason I was so silent was because I didn't want to seem unprofessional to anyone stating that they were taking their time." So we got some good info from that. We're going to verify it after we cover what Don has told me. But before we do that, I have to preface this with something. Don has not talked with Dominic in a while, and he's been busy with other projects since MMPR. He can only really tell me about the editing aspect. He also gave me some assumptions as well, but that's just what they are, assumptions. Keep that in mind. Anything he said that was preceded with, "I don't know for sure," or "my guess is," should not be considered a factual statement, but an assumption. As someone with experience in the entertainment industry, his assumptions probably do hold more ground than someone who isn't, and make them more likely and believable, but nonetheless they are assumptions. Here's what he had to say to me through private messages. After introducing myself, I asked Don the following. Dominic told me that the ordeal between him and Threshold was basically that he wanted some other changes done, Threshold wanted a new contract, Dom signed off on it, Threshold didn't honor it, and here we are today. They used the VFX they already did in their film in their demo reel. That got them more work, and that essentially led to MMPR Fan Film being in limbo. Though it correlates pretty well with everything else I found, people are obviously going to be skeptical because Dom said it. Were you involved enough to know if this is more or less the story between Threshold and Dominic? Here is his response. To be honest, I wasn't. Once I picture locked the edit, I sent everything back to Dom and he took it from there. We talked a few times since then, but never really about the VFX struggles. I think for a long time he didn't want any of us to know his struggles as he was trying to figure it out. Having worked on so many VFX movies though since MMPR, I can tell you that it doesn't sound like that uncommon of a situation. He summarized, basically the money raised from the Kickstarter didn't end up being enough for them to do the project the way they did, and it went over budget. Anything being done after principal photography was being paid for by Dom and Lewis out of their own pockets. He then made the following assumption. My guess is that they worked out a deal with Threshold and probably at a discounted rate. But the thing with that is that they end up working on the project in between all their other bigger and higher paying gigs. So then the process gets dragged out for a really long time. Also, when you're working for a cut rate, there also isn't as much back and forth and changes that are allowed. So I figure there came a point when Threshold had done enough work for what they were being paid, and there were still more changes needed. So they waited to negotiate a new deal and get more money to finish the job. If this wasn't all clear and upfront, then that's probably where this issue stems from. Even though that is an assumption, that sounds borderline identical to the explanation Dom gave. We've established that the two have not talked in a long while, probably since late 2015 or early 2016. So far, these two explanations do sound so similar, it has to be as Dom put it, not an uncommon situation. The next thing I ask about is the claim I see going around stating that the film has already had 2 or 3 VFX firms working on it. I asked Don if he can confirm this. To be honest, man, I don't know for sure. I think there might have been more than one company that they have worked with, but no, I can't say for sure. We'll actually cover this point in depth further on. We also discussed the likeliness of Saban getting involved with this, something I'll discuss when debunking allegations, but Don's response covers it pretty well. No, Saban never got involved, and you're right. If he had, it would have been gone a long time ago, and clearly communicated that he was the reason why, and they would never revisit this. The last question I asked him was one I already knew the answer to, but many backers and fans still refute. I asked him, minus the pending VFX, is there a final product? Don said, yep, I have seen every frame of footage that was shot and cut it all together myself. Now that we have this info, let's cut it all together and cross-reference it with the info in the previous video. Dom said, when we asked for changes they wanted a new contract, which we signed off on, and then they never honored the contract. Their work got them more work, which put MMPR on hold for a full finish. Don made the assumption, my guess is that they worked out a deal with Threshold, and probably at a discounted rate. But the thing with that is that they end up working on the project in between all their other bigger, higher paying gigs. So then the process drags out a very long time. Can we find anything that supports these statements? Yes, and from Threshold themselves. On May 11th, 2016, when everything originally happened, they made the following statement. Just to clarify, and we will in a more in-depth post later, but this film has VFX or CGI in every single scene. On top of that, because MMPR had little to no budget for post, we have had put literally over 1,000 hours into this project, but have had made it a side project, otherwise we would not be able to pay bills, if that makes sense. With that being said, the film is now in the hands of the audio guys, while we tweak the VFX and finish one final major badass scene. To get 2 people on the same team to collectively say roughly the same thing isn't hard. Getting the people who referred to them as scammers to say roughly the same thing a year prior though, that should be enough to get us to start thinking that maybe Threshold played more of a part in the holdup than we originally thought. But what if I told you I could get a third really important party to further confirm this? What Threshold has been saying is that the VFX were completed and that the film was passed off to the audio team for scoring. For those who didn't know, Ron Wasserman himself was going to score this film, him and his team. He is credited with that. However, I found this tweet by Mr. Wasserman himself. He gets tweeted at asking if he was heavily involved in the MMPR fan film. His response was, "I was supposed to be, but apparently the film died out. Too bad, I was really looking forward to it." Guys, what this tells me, and I have to say this is speculation, but pretty solid speculation, but what it tells me is that the film wasn't being scored. It hasn't been scored. Ron doesn't know what's happened to the film, and as he said, he was supposed to be involved. Threshold is saying that the film's VFX is done and the film itself is being scored. Ron Wasserman, the guy to compose it, is saying he was supposed to be involved, but the film died out apparently. Maybe I'm missing something here and someone can clue me in, but I think it's time to find out who Threshold is. Threshold was founded by Brennan Kareem, Zachary Kareem, and Renis Rivera. Their demo was uploaded February 6th of 2016. That's when their work, specifically their VFX work, went public. Let's see how many projects they've had since that date. If we check out all three's IMDb page, it looks like they've worked together on VFX for Space Commander, as well while doing MMPR, as the three are all credited with that. And while it might be just one more VFX project, keep in mind that the Threshold team are not just visual effects specialists. They are actors, directors, editors, and more. They announced their involvement in MMPR on January 16th, 2015. From the start of 2015 to now, they have had a lot of work. Also, their demo doesn't showcase anything other than their VFX work, so it is reasonable to assume that any visual effects role they got after their demo was released can be attributed to the demo. Lastly, we know from experience that VFX can take a long time, so VFX done for a full movie is still a lot of work. And I say full movie because if we check this film's YouTube page, the most recent video talks about the film's completion and a 2-hour pilot. 2 hours, we're talking VFX for a 2-hour pilot versus the MMPR film, which is likely a little more or a little less than 20 minutes. So the claim that their reel got them more work is definitely likely. And the claim that they took higher paying gigs and put MMPR on the side is definitely confirmed. This doesn't really make Threshold bad guys though, so let's not paint them in that light. Did they put VFX completion of the fan film off? Yes, it definitely seems that way. Did they do it intentionally to piss off the fans and backers? No, probably not. They said themselves they were likely getting less than desired in terms of pay and had to make higher paying gigs their priority so they could pay the bills and put food on the table. Why are we hearing about this so late though? Well, Dom did previously say that the reason I was so silent was because I didn't want to seem unprofessional to anyone stating that they were taking their time, likely talking about the VFX team. A conscious decision made by Dominic, albeit maybe not the right one. So, with this info on the table, why did Threshold call the MMPR team scammers, and why were they claiming that the film was being scored? That is the new million-dollar question. Could be because Dom and Threshold were in a similar situation to what Don described. Threshold was getting paid at a discounted rate and might not have liked that much. Maybe there was a miscommunication between the two about the contract. Who knows for sure why they used the term scammer, but despite what I said in my previous video, which I now acknowledge was slightly inaccurate, we can confirm that the VFX likely really weren't completed, and that's based off of statements given by the director, the editor, the composer, and the VFX team themselves. The next not as major point I do want to cover is the statement by Dom. We told the actors not to get involved. It's not their place and we really wanted to work things out with them. Is there anything to support here what Dominic said? Well, let's look at the previous 3 actors that I spoke with. Don, Ricky, and the anonymous actor. Don said, "We talked a few times since then, but never really about the VFX struggles. I think for a long time he didn't want any of us to know his struggles as he was trying to figure it out." Ricky said, "I know just as much as the fans do." Anonymous actor said, "I hope the film gets released." Again, it's pretty safe to say that the actors are just as much in the dark about the current status of the film as the fans are, but they do confirm that the film was shot and there is a final product minus the pending VFX, which for whatever reason some fans and backers still refute. So I think it's time to debunk some of the allegations thrown around by those that are justifiably upset. I think the fact that we are even talking about a VFX team adding special effects to a film sorta confirms that the film was shot and cut together. Video effects don't get added during filming. The fact that the editor said that as well confirms that this film 100% does exist. Dominic did not scam anyone. The money was all used on the film as said by the editor himself, Don Money. Had he really taken the money and ran, he wouldn't have updated us. Dominic is actually a part of Codebreaker Productions. He has a history in the film and entertainment industry. For him to decide to just up and scam people out of nowhere when he has a record of different independent features is very unlikely, especially because he's continuing to work in the industry. This was actually the hardest claim to debunk. With the help of another Facebook user, I got the information that Codebreaker Productions, Roland Studios, Aduvio Productions, and Midnight Treehouse LLC all worked on this film. Are these VFX studios though, and if not, what role did they play during the production of MMPR? Let's go one at a time. Codebreaker Productions. This is actually the team Dominic is a part of. Likely the firm that started production. This is not a VFX team. If it was, Dom would not have hired a VFX firm. Codebreaker is a productions team. Roland Studios. There's not much to their website, but based off of their one Google review, what I could get from their website, Roland Studios offers shoot locations, stages, places to film. Again, not a VFX team. Aduvio Productions. Taken right from their Facebook page, Aduvio Productions is a full-service, innovative, top-notch, new generation productions company that specializes in the making of films, commercials, and web videos around the world. Their photos and videos don't showcase anything VFX related. They even say it themselves, they are a production company. I hope I don't butcher this name too much, but Aliki Parashis responded to me after I reached out and confirmed to me that Aduvio provided production insurance to the film. That's it. Midnight Treehouse LLC. Their website says they are a Brooklyn-based production company that has worked on a variety of content. If we check out their Facebook page, we actually do find one person who is credited with anything VFX. Ryan Ella is credited as VFX and post-production services. That doesn't make Midnight Treehouse a VFX firm though. If we go through their content, a lot of the pictures and video they share seem to be actual filming, voiceover work, and music composition, with the exception of this image, which says VFX compositing on it. Now what exactly are VFX compositing? If we do a quick Google search, we can see that VFX compositing, or just compositing, is also referred to as green screen, blue screen, or chroma key. Personally, I felt that that information is a little too vague, so I dug a little bit more and found out compositing or VFX compositing can be a little bit more than just green screen or chroma key. It can be the manipulation of images, like how we see in the image here. So there actually is a chance that Midnight Treehouse LLC did some VFX work for the Mighty Morphin Power Ranger fan film. To be fair, since one person is credited with VFX, I decided to reach out and ask. This is what they said. Midnight Treehouse consulted in the development, pre-production phase, as well as coordinated and produced the Blue Ranger suit and fabricated specialty props. Our team were present throughout the shoot to manage these elements and provided additional production support where needed. I asked them if Ryan did any work of any sort of VFX for the film, and this is what they said. Ryan did do work on their post effects. We have a post-production setup in our studio. Now, are post effects or post-production the same thing as VFX? Let's do a short search. VFX is defined as the process by which imagery is created or manipulated outside the context of a live-action shot. Post-effects or post-production is defined as the task of editing raw footage to cutscenes, inserting transition effects, voiceover work, sound work, and dubbing, and that's just a few of the many tasks apparently. So it seems that VFX work is post-production work, but not all post-production work is VFX work. Though Ryan is specifically credited as Midnight's post-production services and VFX, we can say there is a small chance he did VFX for the film, but I personally don't think he did anything extensive, and I base that assumption on the fact that Dom had to hire a VFX crew, a team of people who specialize in VFX, opposed to just one person. Based on the given information, I think we can say this claim is about 90% debunked, seeing as how there's a small chance that Ryan Ella did do extensive VFX work, even though I really can't prove if he did or didn't. This is something I talked about in my previous video, so I'll touch on this quickly. Slapface is an indie film where Dom did the cinematography. That's it. The film was produced by Natasha Straley. Natasha also started the crowdfunding for the film as well. If you don't believe me, here's the proof. For the final time, Dom did not kickstart or have access to the funds for Slapface, which they already finished filming for, by the way. Can Saban sue? Yeah, probably. Does he have an actual case though? No, he doesn't. The video falls under fair use. Not only do the MMPR team state that they don't own the likeness to Power Rangers, but they can't make money off this film, and copyright laws favor that. Don Money confirmed Saban never got involved, and to be realistic, if he did, we would have heard of it by now. The Power Rangers fan film, Power Rangers Unauthorized Bootleg, was taken down due to a copyright strike from Saban, and when it happened, everyone heard about it. But then again, that film was higher profile. I got a hold of Cisco Davis Jr., the director for Teenagers with Attitude and Zordon of Eltar. These are other Power Ranger fan films. I asked him if he ever received any sort of legal notice from Saban, and this is what he said. No, I didn't receive any. I did get contacted by production companies in LA with interest in me doing projects for them though. Again, something else I touched on in my last video. The website went up in August of 2012 and down in August of 2016. The website was literally just an embedded video with the credits below it. The fact that it went down does not even remotely come close to proof that the film isn't coming out. Okay, so let's take a quick look at the date the website went down and the date we're given in the latest MMPR update. The website went down in August of 2016. We got the most recent update saying that they plan to have the film out by September 2016. Now ask yourself this question. If the film did come out in September of 2016, would they still need a website? No, they wouldn't, because the film is already out. I imagine that that was the plan. The plan was to let the website expire, seeing as how the film was going to be out a month, maybe even less, than when it was supposed to go down. So I actually had to re-record this because I felt like the last version of this section that I did, I was being too much of an asshole. I was being too sarcastic and being too harsh. So I decided to re-record it and try and be more, less of an asshole. But this is my opinion on the whole situation. Now that this information has come to light, I know a lot of people will probably think I'm doing a complete 180, but that's not the case. I had no problem holding fans accountable in the last video either. I think that point is fairly well proven if you check out the misplaced hate section of that video. But I feel like too many of us are pushing a false narrative of something we know nothing about. The MMPR Facebook page has over 40,000 likes. The likelihood that out of those 40,000 people, even 1% works in the entertainment industry is very, very unlikely. But something I learned about this whole ordeal is that the internet is subject to hyperbole. When we hear something that we think is relatively bad news, a lot of us will blow it out of proportion without doing the proper research. Today's mainstream media already does that for us, guys. We don't need to be like them. Basically, what I'm trying to get at here is, before we see a tweet or an article that shocks us or stuns us about this film, I think maybe we should research it before we take it as a credible fact. Yes, the film is way overdue. No one's disputing that. I agree with that as well. But at the same time, I especially think the fans who didn't donate are acting just a little bit too entitled. If you're a backer for this film, your anger is justified. I would like to say, at the very least, be a little bit informed about what's going on and what's actually happening, but for the most part, the backers are justified in their anger. I can't say the same for the fans who didn't donate, though. The best way I can describe this situation is relating it to when Bat in the Sun, another production team, was producing Green Ranger vs. Ryu for their Superpower Beatdown series. A lot of people felt that that episode took way longer than it should have, and Bat in the Sun got a lot of shit. But here's the thing about Superpower Beatdown. Every single one of their episodes was free of charge to everyone. No one had to donate anything, no one had to pay anything. You can all go watch Bat in the Sun right now. They're pretty impressive with their Superpower Beatdown. The point I'm trying to make here is, if you're getting this free of charge, there really isn't any reason you should be complaining. There's over 43,000 likes on the Facebook page, and only 478 people backed this project. So don't try and tell me that every single person complaining backed the project, because that's very unlikely. And that's all I gotta say on that. I could say more, but I won't. I'll leave it at that. Now, to conclude this video, let's summarize everything we've talked about real quick. Does the film exist? Yes. Did Dominic scam anyone? No. What's the status of the film? Surprisingly enough, it does still need VFX work. I know that's what a lot of you don't want to hear, but it looks like that's the truth. Who are the bad guys here? Not anyone, really. Threshold did what they had to do to put food on the table. The only thing Dominic is really guilty of is not keeping us up to date on what's been happening, which he said was because he didn't want to seem unprofessional. Which, that's his decision. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I think that's my only critique, and I think that's firm but fair. And in all honesty, I don't expect a lot of you guys to be happy with this video, or to be happy about what I've said. But based on everything I've uncovered, it all points to the fact that the VFX really weren't done, and all this really comes down to is overambitiousness and miscommunication. That's really it. Not uncommon in the film and entertainment industry, but that's it. Alright guys, that's it for this video. If you enjoyed, maybe leave a thumbs up and maybe even subscribe. Do you still think the film's not gonna come out? Let me know down in the comments below. Let me know if you agree with anything I said. Let me know if you're absolutely livid and you think I should just shut up. I'm sure you'll be vocal about it down below. Until next time, guys, see ya.